Judge Engoron's gag order has now been stayed by an appeals court in the state of New York. This comes after Tishy Latish James has been prosecuting Trump for weeks now, and the judge doesn't want Trump's defense attorneys talking about his law clerk called Allison Greenfield, aka GF, Greenfield, short GF, the judge's GF, has been very, very close to the judge, right? This is her laptop right here, sitting next to him on the bench, handing him little love notes. Nobody really knows what was going on because the judge gagged everybody, said, you can't talk about it, said, don't you dare talk about my love notes with my GF. And now Trump and his people have appealed it, and they've won a temporary interim stay of that gag order. And Trump has responded to this ever so subtly, and I'll share with you what that is. But this is what Frank Runyeon, who was there, said happened. And it was kind of a surprising little detour of a day because we weren't really expecting much here today. This is what Frank said. Now, he reports over from Law 360, and he said, no, Trump filed an emergency suit suing Justice Engoron. Okay, it's an application, it's a challenge, it's a suit with an appellate court seeking to overturn Judge Engoron's gag order. Now, I'm waiting to get the full filings here because all this stuff is super fresh, but the Supreme Court's gag order, they say, entered during the non-jury trial and the underlying proceeding, they say, is unconstitutional, and the sanctions violate the law. Here's an excerpt from Trump's filing. It says, Judge Engoron may not, by judicial decree, transmogrify the court's summary contempt power into an unfettered license to inflict public punishments on a defendant for the defendant's out-of-court statements made for the benefit of the Fourth Estate, which I think transmogrify is a Calvin and Hobbes hearkening. So, nor does the court's summary contempt power authorize the Supreme Court and its staff to actively and independently investigate and prosecute violations of a gag order, saying Judge Engoron's enforcement of a gag order has violated multiple sections of judiciary law, casts serious doubt on his ability to function as an impartial finder of fact in a bench trial. His extraordinary expansion of that order both limits and chills advocacy on petitioners' behalf and precludes Trump's lawyers on pain of contempt from making a record of misconduct and bias in the courtroom. And so that's going to be a great filing that we'll go through in full detail, but when we get it. But the current response on this is several of the press, like a select few of the press, learned about this. Like Trump filed it, they issued immediate oral arguments, and so they jumped over to what he says are the gilded appellate courthouses in Uptown right now. They just ran over there. We've been led to a small conference room with red carpets, oversized portraits of former judges, and the judge walks in like, oh man, what the heck's going on here? And guess what? He says this is not going well for the Attorney General. Justice Friedman is highly skeptical of Judge Engoron's gag orders. Obviously, they're insane and breaking. Associate Justice David Friedman temporarily lifted the Justice Engoron's gag orders on Donald Trump and his attorneys in the civil fraud case. Here was the initial order saying, considering the constitutional and statutory rights at issue, an interim stay is granted. Signed 11/27/23, expedited, signed by the judge and the court clerk. Says Engoron and the Attorney General's briefs are due by November 22nd. So Engoron has to file a response as to why he thinks this is appropriate. Tishy has to file a response, and then Trump issues a reply by November 27th. Then the entire panel is going to decide on this case. And that is going to be good. Real good. So make sure you're subscribed because we'll be covering all of that. Now, a little bit more on the meat on the bones here from the AP article that posts the following. They were also there, it sounds like, in the court. They say a gag order that barred Trump from commenting about court personnel was lifted temporarily. The gag order was suspended, and this comes after Engoron had already issued 2 gag orders, sanction violations against Trump, totaling $15,000. There was an emergency hearing on Thursday. Friedman questioned Engoron's authority to police Trump's speech. Oh, how can you control that? Like his frequent gripes about the case in social media and other comments to TV cameras and in the courthouse hallway. He said, you know, it's true that judges can issue gag orders. They're mostly used in criminal cases where there's a fear that comments about the case could influence the jury. But this is a civil trial and there is no jury. Trump's lawyer, Christopher Keese, was there. Now, he said after Friedman ruled, he said the appellate judge made the right decision, allowing Trump to take full advantage of his First Amendment rights to talk about bias in his own trial. What he's seeing and what he's witnessing at his own trial. He's seeing it. And frankly, everyone needs to see it. Alina Abba indicated she had no plans to advise the former president to stay quiet. I don't see a reason for restrictions because Miss James is continuing to disparage my client, says Miss Abba. Both sides need to be able to speak. She's posting X account posts all the time. So why can't he? Now, Trump hasn't threatened the clerk's safety, she said. She suggested that the Greenfield GF was bringing scrutiny upon herself by being visible in court, by using social media, by donating donating thousands of dollars to Democrats. Friedman's ruling also applies to Trump's lawyers as well. And so they've repeatedly says that Greenfield has been doing some very strange stuff with the judge. Engoron said, no, she's my law clerk. I can do whatever I want with her, and she's very beautiful. And the Constitution, they say, is now protecting Trump. And I totally agree. He should be free to speak about this. And it sounds like the Court of Appeals currently agrees. Now, this is the order that came out from the judge. And you can see here's some more. This got filed. It looks like dated summary statement on application. So this looks like the cover sheet. The application, they say, is for an interim stay of enforcement of 2 unconstitutional gag orders and imposition of sanctions thereunder pending a full panel determination petition brought in the nature of a mandamus and prohibition. Okay, so that's the type of action they brought. If applying for a stay, why are the reasons? And it's so funny, right? Lawyers, like, we fill out forms all day. It's like just forms. So here, Supreme Court gag order entered during a non-jury trial and the underlying proceeding are unconstitutional, and sanctions imposed violate the judiciary law and rules of this court. They say, has any undertaking been posted? They say no. They say, if yes, state the amount. Has this application been made for relief? No. Any prior? No. Adversary, Tishy, been advised of this? Yes. Who's the attorneys? Christopher Keese, Clifford Robert, and Alina Abba. Who's the opposition? The Attorney General. Faherty, Eric Daniel, and Judge Engoron is there, along with Lisa Evans. And he says, okay. They fill out the form. He hears oral arguments. He just closes it out right there. Considering the constitutional and statutory rights at issue, an interim stay is granted. Boom. Signed off by the judge. Obviously the right decision. What we're witnessing there in Engoron's courtroom is lunacy, and we've been watching it ever since. Now, Trump made a slight nod to this, all right? He posted this as soon as the order dropped. He said this, just a simple little truth. Just a little, oh, that's good to know. That's very good to know. He didn't say anything, but he did post, he says, yeah, oh, a New York judge lifts the gag order. Well, that's pretty fun. And so we'll see if Trump says anything else before that was something that was lifted. He posted this morning. He said, why doesn't the implosion of the AG of the New York State star witness end this witch hunt? He admitted on the stand that he lied, Cohen, and that I never told him or anyone else to inflate the numbers. In fact, the numbers are low or very conservative, the exact opposite of what this ridiculous rigged case is all about. The fraud is by the judge and the AG, Mar-a-Lago, and more, not by me. So that's Donald Trump. Now, that was before the gag order was lifted. And so we see what the before looks like. We'll see what the after looks like, because now Trump is free to criticize what should be condemned, which is insane co-judging by an unqualified person who wanted to be a judge, who's made thousands of dollars of donos to Democrats, who is sitting on the same level as the judge, giving him notes, co-judging throughout the trial with her laptop literally right next to his. Now they can comment on that. The judge said, don't you talk about my GF, don't talk about my Greenfield. Now they can, and we'll see what Trump says, we'll see what Alina says, and we'll see what the Court of Appeals says, because Engoron has been ordered to respond to this, to explain himself to the Court of Appeals, and that should be fun to read through. We'll be doing that here, my friends. Thank you for joining us as we do. Thank you for subscribing to our channel and sharing it with a friend or family member, inviting them to come on over here and join us so that they can stay apprised of what is happening in these weaponized prosecutions throughout this next election. It's only going to heat up from here, and we'll be looking forward to seeing you join us as the coverage continues.